The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you. Or wonders they say shall never cease to happen. Emmanuel Macron has sent shockwaves across global stage after a bold and controversial warning. Europe, he says, is facing existential threat, not just from one rival, but from three superpowers: Russia, China, and even the United States of America. In a tense geopolitical moment, Macron painted a picture of a vulnerable Europe caught between rising military aggression, economic pressure, and shifting alliances. His message is very clear and unsettling. The old world order is collapsing, and Europe must wake up, or risk being left exposed in a rapidly changing global power struggle. And I hope Africa and the leaders who are bowing down to oppression are listening to the same people we depend so much on them to come to our aid. He went ahead to say that when it comes to partnership, they are very reliable. They are truthful, unlike other people who promise, and when the time is due for them to deliver, you don't see them. That they are doing everything possible to help other people. And when it happened, they went to the Gulf states. Look at the things that they use in helping the Gulf states. People are moving away from the United States of America because of the way US is not always firm to defend its partners.
Where a US president, a Russian president, a Chinese president are dead against the Europeans.
Trump says that Europe is spoiled and that basically Europe has outsourced its defense to the US after the war. And the truth is, in Hormuz, we can see that Europe cannot undertake a mission by itself during war circumstances. And even in Ukraine, if there's going to be a security commitment by the Europeans, you cannot do this without the backstop by the US or air cover. How is this going to change?
First, we should not underestimate that this is a unique moment.
There's a lot of doom and gloom, as you know, about Europe. And you're very concerned about it. You say we have to stop sort of putting ourselves down. You said that in a speech. The thing is, are you worried that Europe is becoming a bit irrelevant these days? I mean, with what's going on in the world, especially now in the Middle East, do you have the feeling that we're becoming like an armed NGO or a think tank and, we're becoming geopolitically irrelevant?
Thank you very much, not just for your words, but this welcome. And I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, Dear Kyriakos, for this invitation, for this visit, and thank to all of you to be here. I think exactly the opposite. I think you are clearly a landslide approach of the Chinese. Last year, they destroyed literally 250,000 jobs in Germany. We are less impacted, by the way, because we disindustrialized in these sectors decades ago. But we have to react to that. And the only way to react to that is to put regulation in order to protect these key sectors. The other regulation, but perhaps we will revert on that, is as well to protect our democracy. What we want to do on children and teenagers regarding the social platforms, what we want to do in order to regulate the social network.
Is European preference an answer to that, to the competition with China?
Definitely. Safeguard clause, European preference. You have to restore the level playing field. You need a fair competition. Each time the competition is unfair, you have to protect your economy. And protection is not protectionism. I'm a strong believer in free trade. But the current world order, when you look at trade, is no more about free trade. On one side, you have overcapacities and over-subsidies in China. On the other side, you have tariffs from the US. If we are in the middle, the only one to be naive and totally open and not to protect our industry, no chance to preserve it. And look at what the Chinese are doing on critical minerals, for instance, and rare earths. They are taking a lot of these capacities, killing the competition. When they still have competitors, they create dumping conditions to kill the existing capacities when they are in our hands. And when we are naive, our own producers go to the Chinese in order to be more competitive. If you don't have a European preference, a minimum percentage of European components, it's impossible to preserve our strategic autonomy. And when we speak about strategic autonomy, it's obviously about defense and security, but it's as well about industry, agriculture, technology, finance.
Let me end this part about the economy by asking this. all these like the capital market union and all these kind of reforms, to some people in this very fragmented political landscape, they seem like a design of the elite. They don't really, mean anything to the average person. And we live in a very polarized world. So how do you convince people? You both have difficulties in that, in both countries. How do you convince them that this is a goal that you have to achieve that will make a difference in their own lives?
This very moment could be the European moment. And for several reasons. Number one, everybody in this world have a clear view that this is a world of disorder. Second, everybody sees that the number one power, the US, could be an ally for certain countries, but this ally is not so much certain. And nobody is totally sure if this ally is reliable. And third, we were used to live in an international order, and this international order is jeopardized by the two big powers. And what is the European Union? A place of predictability and reliability. And I think it has a lot of price. When we have partners, we are with them. And by the way, Greece and France, during the past few months, we acted day one with the Gulf countries when they were attacked by Iran. Yesterday, we were with the president of the European Council right after his trip to the Gulf countries, and he reported to the whole group that Greece and France were celebrated by UAE and other countries because the very first day we sent air defense system. We have our Rafale. We sent additional Rafale to protect the countries. We sent SAMT new generation, the air defense system we have. And we contributed concretely day one to their defense. And I think you should not underestimate this point. So we are reliable, we are predictable. But more than that, I think when you look at the global picture, Europe represents, when you aggregate our capacities, a huge defense power. Europe represents a very relevant trade player. We represent something like 16% of global trade, the same as China. US is 15%. We are an actual financial place. And by the way, we improve the links between Greece and France during the past few months with an important merger on the platform of Euronext. And if you take all the different categories, we are at scale. The issue for us is to become an actual power, meaning to use our weight in the global order to be respected much more than we are today, and to contribute to actual solutions, and to be a trade power, not just to negotiate trade agreements, but clearly to impose reciprocity to the others, to impose European preference, we will probably revert on that, to protect our industry, and to be seen as, on the long run, a credible partner. But let me tell you that the moment where we are is a moment for the European Union and for the Europeans, because we are seen as respecting international law, being reliable, being predictable, and people are looking at the real weight we have.
Is this superregulation a way to defend European sovereignty, or is this also a method, by which basically you strangle innovation in this continent? And can you strike a balance?
This is exactly our challenge. I really believe that we over-regulated some sectors. And as Kyriakos just said, it's clear that we have a challenge, and in fact it's scale, speed, and simplification. Scale, we have clearly to deepen the single market, because this is our strength. Speed, we are clearly too slow. And simplification, we have to kill all the hurdles we have, and sometimes we create. So it's clear that we over-regulated some sectors. We still have too many national regulations, and we have to improve that. And this is exactly one of the main conclusions of the Draghi report and the Letta report, and what we urged the Commission to put in place last year. And you have all this omnibus package. And by the way, a lot of us are doing exactly the same exercise at the national scale. But it's not sufficient, because you have as well smart regulation. And let me insist on that as well. We need regulation sometimes to preserve our own industry and our own capacity to produce. China and US, they do have regulation, but this regulation favors the national players. Most of the time, our regulation is a burden on the European players, and we are too naive and too open on the non-European one. This is why one of the challenges we have is to preserve the level playing field. So each time we put in place a regulation, we have to make sure that those who export towards Europe are submitted to the same regulations. It's not often the case. Mirror clause. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we preserve the interests of our players. And this is why we do advocate this concept of European preference. Because today, we are clearly attacked. One of the main challenges, if we want to deliver this agenda, is to be lucid on the current context. One of the main challenges of the European industry today, and in order to deliver this sovereignty agenda or this strategic autonomy, is about China. China has today overcapacities, is over-subsidizing a lot of sectors, and is literally killing a large part of the European industry. And we are clearly too slow to see that. But look at the automotive industry and the machine tool sectors, where a US president, a Russian president, a Chinese president are dead against the Europeans. So this is the right moment for us. Wake up. And if
there have been many wake-up calls, Mr. President.
Yeah, but I mean, if we don't believe in ourselves, no chance that the others will say suddenly they are super guys. So we have to be a little bit self-confident and deliver an agenda, a defense and security contribution. The US is welcome. It's super important if they provide the monitoring on the front line. It's very highly appreciated if they provide the backstop. But we already decided to do so. And what I decided for France to do is not contingent to the American involvement.
But let me ask you both something. It's a mystery to me. Europe has Airbus. Airbus is a global success story. Why can't you work on a joint, fighter, next generation fighter? I know you're very frustrated by this. You've been trying very hard to have European, cooperation on this. Why is this happening? Is it national egos? Is it business interest? What's the reason behind all this delay and all this hesitation?
We have to deliver. And I think there is this is to be consistent with what we've said from the very beginning of this discussion. If you look at the global competition and the global order, what we need as Europeans is common standard, much more simplification. As long as we have 6 times, 7 times, 8 times more standards than the US, when you speak about missiles, fighter jets and so on, there is no chance to be competitive in this world. So it goes through mergers, it goes through common projects, it goes through best athlete approach. We have several ways to do so. But we have to go beyond both the national interest and the company's interest because this is a strategic issue. And for me, defense and security is a very good example of what we've discussed from the very beginning, how to have this strategic autonomy. To have strategic autonomy is to buy European and to produce as Europeans. And this is why. This is, by the way, what we are doing as well on submarines together. You decided to buy French submarines, and the Kimon is a great source of common pride, and we'll go tomorrow to this frigate together. But progressively, you will have more production on the Greek side, and this is as well a cooperation because it should be progressively a European production. And this is the way, as Europeans, to deal with this issue. A lot of countries didn't have a strong European industry. We cannot just ask them, stop buying Korean or Americans. We should say, you should buy European because this is the only way to be more independent. And the day we are disaligned with the Americans, for instance, you will make sure that you can still have your products, your arms, your munitions, your weapons. But you have to give them the fair share and to create as well industrial opportunities and upsides. And this is exactly what we are doing.
And Europe, as he's saying it, is going to gain. That this is the moment for Europe to build itself. It's a game-changing moment, and they have to grab this opportunity. because they need to build themselves instead of depending on other people. And the reason to which they are treated this way is because they do not have the power and they continue to depend on other people. And the time has come for them to change and move away from that, just like Africans. And I hope our leaders are listening to the same people that are also depending on other people, calling themselves out to make sure they stand on their feet and develop, build themselves to make sure they get power. Power is everything that we need as Africans. And what will give us the power, we have it. All that we need is the boldness to be able to resist like Iran is doing, so we can reclaim everything that we have in our soil, like the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are doing. So Europe knows that it is weak. They cannot stand on their feet. And it's like what is happening in Iran is teaching everybody something. And we are all calling for ourselves to unite. Iran's war opened the eyes of a lot of leaders, including Europe, because when it started, a lot of them thought that it was going to be the everyday thing, like they always do what happened in Venezuela. But the moment Iran resisted, stood firmly, and continued to fight against the two countries that came and attacked it, Europe sat down and saw the power in them. Because if Iran alone can defeat these people, what about the majority countries that came out to form the European Union, that they can do anything? So this is why we are hearing these people change their speeches. And we heard the European Commission President, Ursula, also saying the same thing. Everybody is calling for self-reliance. People who are depending on other people have seen that the old world order is gone. And like he said, just a few years to come, US is not going to be relevant because nobody would like to move with the United States of America, especially after what we have seen happening in this time. So this is the time for all of us in Africa, our leaders, to also think about building ourselves and not allowing people to come and establish their bases here. We don't need the support of anybody. This is why NATO was able to resist and stood firmly to say they are not joining the war, because they've seen that Iran has taught them something. And I hope our leaders are also seeing something meaningful coming out of the Iran war and what we need to be doing in action and not in speech, because these leaders have spoken for a very long time without any action. And if we continue to be talking like we used to do in the old world order, everybody will be ahead of us, like the Finland president warned us. In India, it's either Africa will become players or will remain pawns. And we do not want to, because this is a new world and we also want to be among the superpowers. Like Europe is calling for them to fight to gain power, because this world is power that rules. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Europe and in France.